Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app.
First Sentier Investors are a global asset management group managing $247.3 billion of assets as of the 30th September 2021. They have 17 independent teams operating across equities, fixed income, listed and direct infrastructure, and multi-asset, led by principles of responsible investment and stewardship. They are home to FSSA Investment Managers, an Asian and global emerging markets equities investor. Stewart Investors, a pioneer in emerging market equities and sustainable investing, and Real Index Investments, a systematic equities manager.
Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and today I'm joined by Kate Zerbst. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Now, we are lucky enough to be recording live in person for a change, which is amazing. Both living in the Gold Coast. Yeah,
it's a pretty good spot to live. It's a beautiful day today too.
It's terrible. Now, tell us about what you're doing at the moment.
Okay, so essentially at the moment I'm running a back office support business for financial planners. We focus mainly on paraplanning at this point in time, and we provide a paraplanning service that includes a compliance overlay. So we support financial planners in making sure that they're satisfying their best interest duty, they've got the correct scope in the plan, and we provide a compliance checklist at the end of the process. It's a little bit different to the standard paraplanning service where we follow a set of instructions given by the financial planner. And if we notice in their plan request that there is something in their file notes that's missing or a strategy that could be further developed, then we will always go back and provide that feedback.
Yep, exactly. Now, what you probably missed in that part it's more of a proactive paraplanning service. You're a planner, you're an advisor planner yourself for many years before you started this business, so you know what you're talking about when it comes to those things. And we also want to talk about today some of the stuff you're working on with the professional year and the content you're producing. So we'll get to that in a second. Yes. But before that, let's shoot back in time. Tell us about how you got into the profession.
Okay, so I started out as a teacher way back in my day and then moved to a small country town and was doing relief teaching, and to be honest, it was pretty hard going every day, working in schools with rowdy kids and trying to control them.
As opposed to financial planners?
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
Rowdy at all.
Yeah, and clients. I mean, same but different.
Yep.
So I saw a job as a trainee financial planner at the time and thought, yes, I've always been interested in financial planning and managing money and had read lots of books. I think back in those days it was Paul Clitheroe and there was one other one, I can't think of his name, but so I gave it a go, got the job, and spent 2 years completing a trainee financial planning position, completed my diploma studies, started with the admin, worked my way through the paraplanning, and then...
Who was that with? Was that with a big organisation?
It was with MLC Garvin.
Yep.
At that point in time.
So they had plenty of resources.
They did have plenty of resources. The financial planner was an old Australian Eagle life insurance guy, so mostly focused on superannuation and insurance, which was a really great, I guess, foundation for me. After that, I moved back to the Gold Coast. My husband had a teaching job to come back to with the state system, so it worked really well getting that 2 years of training. It was also good timing because I felt I'd learnt all that I could learn from that planner and needed to go and get experience in other areas. So that was when my career, I guess, took a little bit of a side step. I called up when I got to the Gold Coast to join a hockey club. The lady that I was speaking to on the phone said, my husband owns a financial planning licensee here on the Gold Coast. are you looking for work? We might be able to get you a job. So I ended up working at Fitzpatrick's dealer group on the Gold Coast here and spent a couple of years in a compliance management role, working with an outsourced compliance provider, making sure we had all of the things on our license ticked off, rolling out advisor education and induction for training, completing audits, all of that sort of stuff that goes on in operating a licensee. So that was a really, really great experience.
I would imagine that would be quite a tough gig. Like coming in,
absolutely.
a couple of years experience working in a planner's office, getting your head around the Corps Act and how that works for licensees, and then going out and being the person that audits financial advice.
Yeah, it was, absolutely. But I had a great support structure in place. So my boss at the time was amazing. Paragem, I think, was their name back then. I had someone I could call at any point in time, and they helped supervise what I was doing. So I guess it was like a training program in the job that I was in. So
yep, tough, but you had some good backup behind you.
I did, absolutely, yeah. So after doing that for a couple of years, it was time to move on to something else. So I actually had a baby, and at that point thought it was a great idea to set up my own financial planning business, because I hadn't ever really done that part yet. I'd done the paraplanning and the admin, the compliance side, and thought it was a great time with no clients, newborn baby, to go and set up a financial planning business.
Which is probably doable then.
It was doable then,
but
yes.
Probably not so doable now. I think we've done some stuff to the profession where we pushed a price range up so that
100%.
part-time role of being a mum and looking after a baby and looking and seeing a few clients has become almost extinct.
And super challenging, absolutely. I mean, the cost in itself to be licensed, I had the benefit of having a great relationship with them. So I was able to enter quite low at that price point. But now it's quite costly to be licensed. So you need to make sure that you're generating more revenue than it's going to cost you to be licensed in the first place. So that just is a barrier to entry right there.
Yep. Now you say that was a good idea. And in practice, that didn't quite work out to be.
Oh, no, I did. 4 kids later, a financial planning business later, 150 clients or so, and
hey, that sounds successful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very much so. I had good work-life balance, but it did get to the point where I felt like something was going to give. So once all of the new FASIA rules and requirements started, there was a discussion around that. I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to do running a business, looking after my clients, supporting my staff, and be a good mum and be a good wife, and run the household? Something's got to give here. So I ended up selling my practice back in 2016-ish. The years start to blur after a while. And within 12 months of being just a mum, I needed something for me that I really wanted to go and enjoy and be listened to and not have to nag people all the time. So I got a job in a salaried role at Centrepoint Alliance.
Yep.
Worked there for 3 years.
Can I just ask a quick question about selling your business? Because I think it's there's a lot of this going on at the moment with regards to buying and selling, taking over. Any tips or suggestions on people that are looking to sell books or sell their business?
Look, back in those days, it was quite a simple process because there weren't many books being sold. So I would just make sure that your files are schmick. You've got a good file so that when the planner's coming in to have a look at the purchaser is coming in to have a look, they can see exactly quite quickly at a high level that you're doing all the right things.
Yep. So it's almost like a quick renovation before you sell a house.
Absolutely. Because, at the end of the day, no one's going to take on a book if they're not well-serviced, engaged clients.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic. All right, so then into a salary role. So you're selling a business and then moving into a role as in a salaried role. Was there any dramas there with people who bought your business, or were they happy with that?
To be honest, I didn't really hear any issues.
Yep.
Once the transaction had taken place, I didn't hear from him again. I had a couple of clients call me and I passed them back over to the planner to deal with those issues.
Yep.
So, I think that was probably the biggest one, and this is probably more for a buyer of a book rather than the seller of the book, is just making sure that you make contact straight up, because my quality client, the ones in my gold tier, I guess, that we're used to being able to call me and have contact, were feeling a little bit lost. I'd communicated to them that I'd decided I was moving out and a new planner was going to be taking over the practice. 6 months passed, I think, and maybe they hadn't had a phone call or any kind of communication whatsoever. So just making sure you're keeping them in the loop and making contact and connecting as soon as possible is
developing that relationship.
Important, absolutely.
Yep. Very good. So you moved into a salaried role.
Yep.
As a planner.
Yep. That was good fun. I thought that this is going to be great. I'm just going to go to work, do my job, go home 9 till 5. Didn't quite end up that way. That's good in the thought process is there, but not good in theory. So in practice, so everything I do, it's like I'm running my own business. So that is potentially at the end of the day why I ended up leaving that business. I was doing advising. I ended up moving into an operations management role there and making sure the processes and systems were set up well, setting up a good process in Xplan, and then decided that it was time for me to spread my wings and go and have a crack at this outsourced paraplanning solution, because what we'd been using in our business with outsourced providers just wasn't working for me as a planner. So it would take me 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes to research the strategy that I had to send off to the paraplanner. And then when I get the plan back, it would take me 3, 4, 5 hours to check and fix the document because there were mistakes, and it just wasn't a good system. So in my operations role, I was supporting a financial planner. We had 15 plans to get out that had been in the pipeline for a long time, and we rolled those out in the space of 4 weeks. So by having a good system in place, systemizing everything and working through that, it's a really effective process. And I thought it's time to go and do this for others.
Yep. So you're clearly a systems and process human.
I definitely am, yes, absolutely. It just takes out the compliance risk, in my opinion, because with a good system, you can see exactly what's happening. You can slot people in and out of roles fairly easily, and it's really easy to train people if you've got a good system in place.
Yep, it sounds like a dream. Not always the first thing advisors are good at, though. I mean, I think advisors are great at speaking to people and translating complex situations, but I guess it's difficult to be good at both.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I would not rate myself as a great, fantastic financial planner. I knew what needed to be done, and I had many clients and I built up a client book, but I'm so systems and processes driven that seems to be where I keep going back to. Financial planners are really good at relating to people and having discussions, and when you're really good at that stuff, it comes naturally to you. You're not necessarily so good at.
One's got to be stronger than the other, right?
Absolutely.
So you've set up then an outsourced paraplanning business, but something but from a different angle, from coming at this from how do I create good plans that are compliant at a decent, at a decent time frame.
100%. So the time frame thing is something I've got to be honest, I'm still working on, because I don't write the plans myself. I have a team of staff, and I've recruited about 8 or 9 staff in the space of 12 months, and I've been trying to train them to get them up to the standard. And again, it comes back to processes. I can fix their plans, or I can give them the feedback required for them to fix their plans so that they're learning and getting to that right standard.
So tell us about the process of paraplanning itself, because when I think of it in my head, there's a couple of different functions to it. There's the research, and then there is the strategy, but then there's also the document writing piece. which I'm imagining is not necessarily the fun part.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do all or just some. So depending on what the planner is after, we have people who I've trained in the admin part to do all the data entry, the product research on the existing product, and that's a really important part that I'm constantly supporting the planners in to get right, because it forms part of the best interest duty. And that existing product, getting a statement from a super fund that may be nearly 12 months old just doesn't give you enough information. So we contact the super providers, any existing products that they have, and complete that research piece, find out about capital gains tax, whether the insurance is through super, or, get all of that data that you need. We then we use mostly Xplan, only Xplan. I did try to go off to other providers, but sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm just going to stick. I'm so busy with what I'm good at that, getting to that's not my best use of time. We then do the wealth solver and the risk researcher and the financial projections. Go back to the planner. We create the like-for-like quotes, the quotes for the product. So all of that research that I was talking about before that would take 6, 7, 8 hours for a financial planner to do to get the plan request done, we can do that for them. So we do that piece. We communicate back with the financial planner, make sure the projections are all correct. They're happy with the needs analysis that we've run through the plan, the quotes and so forth, and their products. So some planners have, their model portfolios or their preferences. So we tap into that and get all that research completed. And then we go off and write the plan, which is the final piece. And that takes quite some time as well to make sure that what's in the plan matches what's in the file note, also satisfies best interest duty. One of the big things we're constantly picking up on is things that will trip you up in an audit. So we pick those things up and give you that feedback. The biggest ones are best interest duty with replacement of product, making sure you've had a discussion around their health and insurance if something's being rolled out. And the planners are loving it.
Yeah. And so then you do the compliance check, or you personally do a lot of the compliance checks on the way out.
Absolutely. I check every plan. Yep.
Now, I'm imagining that every single planner is different when you rock up to a new relationship, and there'll be people will be at different stages, and their businesses will be all different. Some will want to do the research, some won't. How do you work through that at the beginning? Because it's pretty daunting for that new relationship to kick off when you both want to be on the same page. Yeah,
totally. So generally most people start as just the traditional financial plan or paraplanning support, and they complete what we call our high-level strategy document. We set that up essentially, ideally for us, we want planners to run their initial meeting, write a thorough file note, complete their risk profile questionnaire, and whether we do the existing product research or they do doesn't matter. And then they complete what we call the brain dump in the high-level strategy document. So they've run their meeting and then complete the brain dump. Every planner knows the things that they're going to look at for this client after that initial meeting. So it's like tick salary sacrifice, tick non-concessional contribution, tick consolidate into XYZ fund using our model portfolio, tick needs analysis. We run through that with them once so we know exactly what they need, and then we'll go and run all of that insurance research, and we know their preferred providers if they have them and their insurance philosophy. So, yeah, each plan is different, but we support both essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you'll then work with the planner to say, what's your process? Is there any way that we can help you with their existing process, just refine it?
Absolutely. So we've got the file naming conventions. We tend to share their client folders and so forth so that we're using one source of truth. And so when I open up the covers on how financial planners are saving their client folders and what things look like in there, then I bring through the naming conventions and try to get them to start saving things in a methodical manner in each file so that I can find them easily, and it also helps make sure that if they are doing the plan request and a lot of the research themselves, that I can easily find things in their file as they need it.
So is this like a little practice management audit where you go through and say, if you wanted to run a really efficient practice, you could try
Absolutely.
these things? So, okay, very good. So you come in and help them, not just for the paraplanning side, but actually all the parts that lead up to paraplanning that makes the paraplanning easier?
Exactly, and that's win-win, because it makes it so much easier for me when I get the plan request through and check that we've got everything we need to then pass straight on to the paraplanner to get the plan written.
Yep.
Otherwise, they forget things. I've got to go back for like quotes, and we've got checklists and things that support them in making sure that either they've given us the data or we have to go back and get the data.
So in a way, you're managing the whole paraplanning process from the moment the client leaves the moment the advisor leaves the client meeting through to the next meeting.
Yes.
Yep. Wonderful. Okay. So all right. So there's that business that you've got set up.
Mm-hmm.
How long has that been going for?
Started that in October last year.
Right.
Yep.
Fantastic. And already up to 8 paraplanners?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, 8 paraplanners. And I actually had to stop saying yes to financial planners because we just weren't quite ready in making sure we had well-trained staff to roll out the plans at the appropriate level that we needed to roll them out at.
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma, isn't it? Having too much business and then putting on more paraplanners and then growing and taking those stepping stones. Okay, so one of the other things that you've worked on off the back of that, and that's probably come off the back of training your paraplanners and your teaching background, obviously, was a lot of the training work that you've been doing, and then now moving into the PY candidate year.
Yeah, so we've spent a lot of time training in my business, the people doing the admin role, training financial planning staff that we're working with. We do one-on-one consulting with various businesses as well, if that's what they're after. And that's really how it's evolved, is that we need to set an industry standard for the back office process and training, especially now that we're heading into financial planners training new entrants, graduates, students coming into the professional year.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people would just assume that's been set when like FASEA came along and they said, here's the guidelines, here's what the PY, the professional year looks like. There you go ahead and do it. That's not the case. Are you telling me that's not the case?
I'm not sure whether you've looked at the FASEA website on the logbook and their professional year template. It's very, very vague.
Yes, I have heard about it. But it's also, there's a few things I want to talk to you about the professional year itself, because it's professional year, not a year.
Yes.
The professional, not a year, we should call it. But also just around that training and supervision and the roles and responsibilities of everybody, because one of the things I've spoken about lately was the idea of what FASEA say. Then licensees come in with a new standard, like a standard over and above that. We're going to have all these other different things. And you said it's good to have a standard, but I love the word standard, and there's so many different standards. Nothing's standard.
No. And everyone, I went to the 3 sessions in Southeast Queensland last week with the FPA and AFA when everybody combined. And what really stood out for me is that everybody's just making it up as they go along.
Yep. This is what you do at the beginning.
Absolutely. This is what we do. That's how the financial planning industry's evolved.
Yep. It's all just been, here's the thing, here's a problem. Let's all solve it in a slightly different way that looks and sounds a little bit different. And again, nothing standardized. Talk to us about what you've done in this space.
Okay. So essentially we've gone about creating the 100 hours of structured training for the professional year, but it's also, it's an online program. You can sign up to the whole course or micro credentials within the course. So it's not just for professional year candidates or people completing their professional year. It can be for anyone working in the financial planning industry. So you might have an admin person who wants to progress, so they can tap into these. You might have a paraplanner who isn't quite up to speed with best interest duty and safe harbour steps. So there might be a course for them to go and I guess further their knowledge and tap into the little bits that they need. Overall, it's 100 hours of structured training that covers off all 4 quarters of the professional not year. Ideally, we've gone through and mapped out in its entirety the professional year. We have the professional year template that was discussed a lot that you need to have at the start to give to your licensee. So we can support licensees on that front. We support the planner in what sessions the professional year candidate actually needs, those soft skills that we have kind of mapped out in quarter 3 and quarter 4. Maybe I should start at the start. Let's
talk about the quarters. I think because it's a good segue to start talking about the first quarter, second quarter, and go on from there. So let's start with the first one.
Yeah. So quarter 1 is all around the admin side of things, making sure they're across the financial planning process. They've got templates in place, processes in place, a well structured back office process from start to finish.
Good foundation.
Now, we have earmarked that as something potentially we're looking at maybe we're talking with Griffith Uni at the moment around the potential of looking at that as being an internship scenario where people maybe in year 3 of their uni degree are able to be, I guess, matched up with a financial planning business that can provide them with a little bit of real world training on that, because no matter how much you learn from a technical perspective, you still need to go and apply the knowledge that you have and get the real world experience. So
and this is how trades work, obviously, with apprenticeships. They send people off to TAFE or they do the education in the classroom at the same time getting a little bit of real world experience.
Yeah, and similar to my teaching degree, from the very start, we start with a week in the first year and it progresses to bigger chunks throughout the time. So it's a really valuable tool, I believe, that needs to be rolled out to support these students so that when they finish their degree, they're not completely green. They've had a little bit of experience already. They know the financial planning process, and that professional year, they can then fast track quarter 1 if they've done quarter 1, quarter 2, which is the paraplanning side of things. I've kind of earmarked that for year 4 of their degree, where they get more into the research and the paraplanning and best interest duty and all of that stuff.
Which is stuff they should be learning in the classroom.
I think they do that in their final subject in year 4. So
actually writing a financial plan?
Writing a statement of advice, yeah, and they have access to X-Plan to do that, I believe.
Yep.
I may be wrong, but that's what I think I was told.
So quarter 1, admin.
Quarter 1, admin, all the templates, phone scripts, super inquiry forms, everything you need to be able to complete that admin process. Annual reviews, what goes into an annual review, FDS obligations, opt-ins, all of those things. And then quarter 2 is the paraplanning piece, how to research, how to do projections, scoping advice, what a SOA looks like, what needs to be in it. And I hear you've been doing some pretty exciting video.
Yeah, working on some video statements of advice.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Keep that one under wraps. Don't tell anybody. It's a secret.
Exciting. I mean,
it's an exciting secret. Can't wait to learn it.
Yeah. And so then once that's, really, can you learn that in 3 months in your professional year quarter?
Well, probably not. No.
That's why it needs to be a longer process. And you need to get cracking on it before you start your professional year. Get that experience under your belt. Because then when you do start your professional year, it could just be a professional year in that you're really just fast-tracking quarter 1 and quarter 2, and you're spending 12 months completing the financial planning training piece, and that's all the soft skills around how to run a meeting, how to connect with a client, how to make them feel like you're listening to what they're saying and that you're really engaging with them.
So are these quarters broken up into 25 hours a quarter? Is that what we...
Haven't got that far yet. At this point, I've mapped out the whole program and what that looks like.
Yep.
I feel like I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if whether that was a requirement or that's something that they haven't really put it in place. They've just said 100 hours.
It's just 100 hours from my understanding,
Yep, so they've left it nice and vague.
Plus 1,500 hours of training.
Yes, on the job.
On the job training, which is, I guess, where that soft skills piece is the most important. So we support the supervisors in giving them all of this content and checklists. You know, when they're sitting with a professional year candidate who's running a meeting, what things are they looking for? What feedback can they give? Those kinds of things. We're supporting them to complete that piece in their job.
Supporting the supervisor or the advisor?
Supporting the advisor.
Super advisor?
Super advisor, exactly. Good one.
One of the things that we'll get back to the quarters, but one of the things that I would expect is that a lot of advisors would know stuff in their head and not necessarily have it on paper, and they might be very good at knowing things and being able to talk to clients, but not necessarily great at they have the skills involved for training or teaching.
Absolutely. It's probably going to be the biggest struggle, I would think, in terms of rolling out that professional year, because everyone does that naturally, but then to kind of break it down and teach someone else how to do that is going to be the challenge.
There's definitely a skill in teaching, and there's a skill in adult learning, which probably I think is a big part of this and will evolve over time. But I don't know how well it's been considered.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be a challenge.
So let's get into the second quarter, the paraplanning. Mm-hmm. You've got all that structured training, how to be a paraplanner.
Yep.
And that's obviously something that you've developed for both your business as well as this year. Absolutely,
yeah. It's, we follow the same process throughout. So I guess because we've got that process in place already for our staff, that's probably the easiest one to then go and train. Now, one thing I guess to note there is that it's not, it's very high level. So what needs to be in a plan. It doesn't actually, we can do this in separately, but we don't go software specific because there's so many different software providers out there that are practice specific and firm specific. So they've chosen what they think is the best that's going to work for them.
Yep.
We don't really tap into CRMs either. We might mention broadly a number of different options, but they're all each practice makes their own decision on those things, so that would be impossible to roll out.
Yeah, no, you got to keep it up, up above that level of choosing specific products, don't we?
Yep, absolutely.
Software products. Okay, so you got the paraplanning. That's quarter two.
Mm-hmm.
Then I guess we have a break between quarter two and quarter three, don't we, for them to do the exam.
Yep, the exam goes in between those two. So that's a really important piece, is making sure you know when the exams are scheduled. I did look recently, but I couldn't see exactly what's happening in the new year with exams. It's been fairly easy for the last couple of years because they've been regular, but I'm not sure what's happening in that space now that things have changed.
Yeah, because it's a big thing to run a national exam for a handful. Let's call it a handful of PY people coming through in the first couple of years. There's not going to be the numbers that we've seen in the past with the amount of people sitting the exam. So it's a big effort to run the exam. So it's going to be an interesting development to follow this, to see how often that's going to be run over the next couple of years.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's nothing to stop a supervisor and a candidate from working together and doing those soft skills and starting the structured training and getting that foundation. But for them to be in a meeting, they need to have that covered off. So
theoretically, you can't start quarter three until you've done the exam and got the results back. And we all know that takes about a bit of time as well.
Yes. That's assuming they pass first go.
Correct. Absolutely. And with the assumption that they pass. So first quarter gets done, then a bit of a time ticking off, then start the second quarter, done that. Now we've got to wait till the next exam comes along. Then we've got to get our results back. Then we can start quarter three. Mm-hmm. So it's not an overnight success. Tell us about quarter three.
Quarter three and quarter four, really, we've mapped it out in its entirety. Like I said before, how to run a meeting, how to answer clients' questions, all of those soft skills that go into being a financial planner. it's the bit that comes easily to most financial planners. But when you're learning that and a new entrant, I think the professional year people that spoke last week said, you've got all this stuff going around in your head and then you're sitting in front of a client trying to talk to them, and it's quite overwhelming. So I guess it's just giving them the skills to then run a meeting and working through that process for clients.
Yeah, a lot of those
giving them the confidence.
A lot of those skills, confidence is a big part. A lot of those skills come over time with experience.
Yep.
And learnings, I guess. I always thought to myself, when I put myself back there, I was like, I knew all the PDSs from start to finish, and I could read them all off and tell everybody all about what was in the PDS, and nobody really wanted to know. They just wanted to know that I knew.
Yeah, exactly. It's making sure you're giving them the bits of information they care about, but also ticking off the compliance list, like how to run through an FSG. That's something an advisor would take for granted, but would be quite bamboozling for a professional year person coming in. They, as a starting point, you would think attention to detail, you'd literally be going through the whole thing. But that's not what financial planners do. Yeah. So, being the client-friendly approch.
Yeah, I always bring it back to that client understanding, right? Looking at the client saying, did you understand all that? Have you got everything? Do you need, what more do you need to know? Yeah,
and that's an important skill as well, is constantly checking back in with the client to get them to explain what you've just said.
Yep.
They're all things that will be discussed in depth and covered off as part of that structured training.
Yeah, so quarter 3 and quarter 4.
Yep.
Almost the same content.
Yeah, repeated over. You do the structured training piece, but then the really important part is that time spent in front of the client.
Yep.
Getting to practice application.
Feeling comfortable, feeling confident.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And so that's a course that you're running out?
Yes.
And who's that for?
It's really for...
As in who are you designed to go directly to? Is it for the...
It's really for the licensee, the financial planner or supervisor, as well as the professional year candidate. They will all have access. By signing up to the course, you will get your logbook, certificates, CPD points allocated to our training programs, as well as the professional year template mapped out in its entirety. So you don't need to then go and create your own. All of those things that you need to complete your professional year and tick off are provided as part of that.
Yep. So I'll just go high level. If you're a licensee and you want to produce standards, they can just dip into this?
Absolutely.
If a financial advisor wants to be a supervisor and they don't know where to go, they can do this. But then the candidate should be, and we sort of talked about this in the roadshow that went around, should be then getting this information and taking it to an employer to say, hey, put me on as a PY candidate, yes, and here's all the information that we need. We'll make it easy on you. It's not it's not something that you have to create.
Absolutely. It gives them, I guess, it helps support the supervisors by knowing what to do for that year, because, a lot of people still don't know what to do. There is no program out there at this point in time that will support people to roll out the professional year.
Yep. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So as we evolve and develop over time, obviously this course will have to keep moving and
100%. So every 12 months, as part of the CPD accreditation, we have to resubmit all of the coursework to the CPD accreditor and have it reassessed. Yeah. So we need to make sure that everything we're doing is keeping up to date with legislation changes and best practice.
Yep. So you mentioned CPD points. I'm assuming that the points need to be accredited CPD for Absolutely. The 100 hours.
Yes.
And you can't just go and, businesses can't just go up and say, we did some training over here, and if it's not accredited for CPD, it doesn't count?
Doesn't count. Absolutely. Yeah. So this will have an official certificate that you're provided at the end of the course to say you've completed one CPD point in practice management or whatever it is, depending on the appropriate area, yep. CPD area.
Yep. And then the supervision hours is up to the advisor to sign off on.
It is, but again, we provide them support around giving feedback, what things need to be ticked off to make sure that they're going to be up to speed at the end of their quarter 3 and quarter 4.
Yep. How long do you think it's going to take somebody to complete the PY, the not year?
Oh, how officially or unofficially?
I think if somebody's listening to this and they want to actually know the real answer, what are you thinking at the moment? We can't speak about the future just yet. We will in a second, but
yeah,
at the moment,
I think bare minimum, to have enough experience going through the whole process. It really depends on the number of clients, I guess, that you experience from start to finish. But bare minimum would be 18 months.
Yep.
I would think, plus longer, because to be honest, every day you hold a client meeting, you think, oh, I could do this better. So there's always the lifelong learning attached to the back of that.
Of course. There's definitely lifelong learning involved.
Yep. And the confidence, I guess, as you progress in the number of years that you've been planning, you just get more confident and better.
I think a lot of planners out there would turn around and say, we didn't want to do too much more education, but actually we've got some really good information out of it, and actually I'm a better person for it. And
yes.
Sometimes you learn stuff and then you use it works, and then you stop doing it and you forget about it, and then it comes up again and you go, oh, that's right, I use it, and you implement it again. So I think that lifelong learning is a great conversation to be had if you are a supervisor of a PY candidate. You'll probably learn a lot yourself out of it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now, tell us about that. So you got the course out there at the moment. What's the name of the course? Where can people find that?
Well, we've called it the Financial Planning Academy. It's on our website, fpassistant.com.au.
So it's Financial Planning Academy.
Yep.
And FP Assistant is your business name for your paraplanning business?
It is, yes.
And tell us about, you've also got a LinkedIn group with that.
Yeah, so I set up off the back of those sessions that I went to last week for the Christmas party, talking about the professional year. I feel like it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and we need to support one another in what works, what doesn't work, tips and tricks. So I've created a LinkedIn group called the Financial Planning Professional Year Hub. And really, I'd love anyone and everyone to join that has an interest in creating fantastic financial planners for the future, because there's a big gap with the number of planners that are leaving over the next number of years, as we all know, versus the number of new entrants coming through. So we all need to get involved in making sure that we have sufficient, succession plans for our own businesses, but also new entrants that are coming through that are trained to a really good standard.
Yep. It's certainly what we all need to do for the future of the profession.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the Financial Planning PY Hub is the LinkedIn group.
Yes.
Jump on LinkedIn, have a look at that. How can people find you? What's the best way for them to reach out if they want to continue this conversation?
On the website or on LinkedIn, send me a message. Kate Zerbst.
It's Kate Zerbst, Zerbst, and FP Assistant is your website.
Yes.
.com.au.
.com.au.
Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much for coming and chatting to us today. Really appreciate running through all that different stuff you're doing. It's super exciting.
It is. I've got a big 12 months ahead rolling out the program.
Yeah, loved it. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds over the next 12 months. I'll be following it with interest.
Awesome. Thanks, Fraser.